4, 3, 2, 1.
Good evening. Thank you all so much for joining us this evening on July 16th for the meeting of the Ascension Parish Council being held once again virtually by video conference. So at this time, I would begin the agenda by calling on Councilman Ogeron to lead us in the prayer and the pledge. Gentlemen, you can remain seated while that goes on.
Good evening, everyone. Just please prepare yourselves for prayer. Lord, we thank you for the blessings that you have bestowed upon us, Lord, and the friendship and the camaraderie that you have blessed Ascension Parish with. We know, Lord, that as we come together to do the bidding of your people, you provide us with the knowledge and the kindness and the cooperation that we all need to get the job done. Lord, keep us safe through this summer, the bearings of the heat and the issues with the tropical systems. We ask you, Lord, to keep your eye on us and keep your hand over us as we ask for comfort. Lord, we further ask that you continue to bless this great nation. Take care of all your people who are suffering with COVID and any other disease, and that you assist us in our steadfast fight for social justice, social reform, and cooperation amongst all your people, Lord. With that, we do pray in Jesus' name. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you so much, Corey.
Thank you, Terry.
All of the council is present tonight. There are no chairs additions to the agenda. And at this time, by the procedure that we need to use in having these virtual meetings, I will ask the council secretary, Ms. Cinnamon McKee, without whom we could not do this. It would be almost impossible. And certainly I want to take this moment to thank the IT folks who also make it entirely possible for us to do this. Thank y'all all so much. Ms. Cinnamon, if you will please read the full agenda.
Ascension Parish School Construction Bond Election Presentation, Superintendent David Alexander. Approval to excuse registration fees due to the parish, $5 per child by Ascension Baseball Committee, Ascension Youth Softball, and Ascension Flight Soccer Club for 2020. Approval of proposed Ascension Parish Transportation Master Plan. Approval of change order number 1 for the LA 73 and Henry Road intersection improvements to increase the contract price by $13,600 for additional drainage pipe along Henry Road for future drainage connection. Approval of change order number 2 for the LA 73 at Henry Road intersection improvements project to increase the contract price by $13,260 for asphalt pavement patching at cross drain locations. Approval of change order number 3 for the LA 73 at Henry Road intersection improvements to decrease the contract price by $5,123.57 for restocking of remaining storm sewer pipe and deduction of pipe from contract. Approval of change order 1 in the amount of $12,540.44 and 5 additional days for Roddy Road, LA 935 to LA 621 clearing and grubbing master contract MA 1701A for the removal of 4 additional trees that were near or in the right-of-way. New contract amount of $374,275.44. Approval of change order 2 in the amount of $4,180.57 and 10 additional days. Roddy Road, LA 935 to LA 621 clearing and grubbing master contract MA 1701A for the removal of 2 additional trees that are near or in the right-of-way. New contract amount $378,456.01. Approval of change order 3 in the amount of $2,167.06 to provide for the installation or removal of temporary driveway for construction access, Roddy Road, LA 935 to LA 621, clearing and grubbing master contract, MA 1701A, new contract amount $380,623.07. Approval of change order number 1 for the LA 73 at Oakland Drive to increase the contract price by $24,593.53 and to add 14 days to provide for additional saw cutting of pavement, square tube posts for street signs, and a stone replacement for a sub-base failure. New contract amount $709,16.56. Request approval to extend the contract of 11 contract design consultants through August 2021 in order to continue to provide services as part of the Move Ascension program and as provided for in their respective master general engineering contracts. Roads to be considered for acceptance into the parish maintenance system as follows: Ascension Commerce Center, Industrial Drive, 5,153 feet. Loop Drive, 1,356 feet. Lyle Drive, 1,331 feet. Camellia Cove Subdivision, Camellia Cove Road, 477 feet. Maiden's Blush Street, 289 feet. April Blush Avenue, 489 feet. Coral Delight Avenue, 266 feet. Germany Oak Subdivision Phase 2, Park Oak Avenue, 2,011 feet. Newtall Oak Avenue, 556 feet. Cathedral Oak Drive, 908 feet. Jamestown Crossing Second Filing, White Ibis Avenue, 1,434 feet. Harrier Street, 594 feet. Avocet Drive, 1,244 feet. Reese Lane Subdivision, Reese Lane, 2,410 feet. Nicholas Street, 157 feet. Talon Industrial, Talon Drive, 1,541 feet, and Carson Drive, 615 feet. Approval of agreement for state contract H013850 Duplessis Road widening US 61 through Louisiana 73 between DOTD and Ascension Parish. Approval of change order MC04 balancing change order for 2019 asphalt overlay master contract to deduct from the master contract $111,652.16. New master contract amount is $2,889,211.77. Approval of substantial completion for 2019 asphalt overlay task 3. Approval of substantial completion for 2019 asphalt overlay master contract. Approval of Project Husky REG Geismer LLC for participation in the industrial tax exemption program under the Post Executive Order 2018 rules. Approval of Clover Born Technologies for participation in the industrial tax exemption program under the Post Executive Order 2018 rules. Approval to redeem 1 million PAR amount of the 9,200,000 Ascension Parish revenue refunding bonds. Renewal of cooperative endeavor agreement between Ascension Parish government and LSU Agricultural Center to support and administer Louisiana cooperative units off campus and to assure continued informal educational programming from the LSU Ag Center. This agreement shall have a term of 5 years. Renewal of cooperative agreement between Ascension Parish government and the Board of Supervisors of Louisiana State University and A&M College, represented by the LSU Agricultural Center, to formalize the commitment of both the LSU Ag Center and Parish to ensure that the Louisiana Cooperative Extension Service continues to provide 4-H youth development programs that are both relevant and useful to all Louisiana citizens. Total amount of agreement shall not exceed $50,000. Renewal of maintenance agreement including mowing and litter pickup between Parish of Ascension and DOTD. Renewal of master contract for professional services between Ascension Parish government and UniFirst of Baton Rouge for industrial uniforms, other clothing items, and flat supplies for an additional year from 7/25/2020 through 7/25/2021 per fee schedule. Certificate of substantial completion Boone Construction Services Hope Villa Lift Station project. Acceptance of lowest responsive bid for the right to act as an official journal for Ascension Parish Government Gonzales Weekly Citizen. Piggyback purchase of 2 2020 Ford F-350 chassis trucks for Fire Protection District Number 2, Courtesy Automotive Group, $62,335.75 each. Approval of state contract purchase of multimedia equipment for the new courthouse, Crescent Multimedia Solutions, $796,110.02. Approval to extend contract with GSA Engineering for utility general engineering and technical service to August 3rd, 2021. Approval to extend contract with Hartman Engineering for utilities, general engineering, and technical services to July 28, 2021. Approval of substantial completion DPWE garage addition and tire shop renovation J. Reed Constructors, Inc. Approval to extend time period for Ascension Parish employees and spouses to receive wellness check to August 31st, 2020. Notice of consideration of action regarding ad valorem tax for the Ascension Parish Public Health Center. Authorization of $5,000 donation to the Baton Rouge Food Bank. Discussion of USDA project status. Discussion of financial status of parish utilities of Ascension. Introduction of ordinance to amend Chapter 2 Administration, Article 7 Departments of Parish Government, Section 2-121, created of the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances adopted by the Ascension Parish Council to amend previously adopted qualifications and to add Director of Technology. Introduction of ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from medium intensity residential to mixed use corridors 2 zoning review IDPZ 2334.20, Tract B2 for Alvin and Nancy Bro, the Warren Paul Bro Irrevocable Living Trust, and Lydia Bro Gutierrez, located on the east side of Highway 73, approximately 1,200 feet north of LA Highway 621. Introduction of ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from medium intensity residential to mixed use corridors 2 zoning review IDPZ 2335.20, Tract C1 for Alvin Paul Bro, Warren Paul Bro, and Lydia Paul Bro Gutierrez, located on the east side of LA 73, approximately 1,200 feet north of LA Highway 621. Introduction of an ordinance to the Unified Land Development Code, Appendix 4, Subdivision Regulations, Section 174032, Street Requirements A1, Density Restrictions, to add language in reference to measuring of roads. Introduction of an ordinance to amend the Unified Land Development Code, Appendix 4, Subdivision Regulations, Section 17408, Procedure for Construction, C.1, to add and potable water and electrical power. Introduction of ordinance to adopt commercial sewer rates for ACUD number 1. Reading of ordinance, budget amendment number 2 to amend the 2020 budget. Public hearing to consider budget number 2 to amend the 2020 budget. Ordinance for budget amendment number 2 to amend the 2020 budget. Reading of ordinance to amend Ascension Parish zoning map from conservation to mixed use corridor. Lot 391, formerly a portion of the Ruby Pollard property for Frank Credito, located on the north side of Airline Highway, approximately 3,400 feet east of John LeBlanc Boulevard. Zoning review IDPZ 22720. Adoption of the ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from conservation to mixed use corridor Lot 391, formerly a portion of the Ruby Pollard property for Frank Credito, located on the north side of Airline Highway, approximately 3,400 feet east of John LeBlanc Boulevard. Zoning review IDPZ 2227.20. Reading of ordinance to amend Appendix 6 Subdivision Regulations, Section 174042, lots geometric standard C, to remove public street and roadway when determining the lot area. Adoption of the ordinance to amend Appendix 6 Subdivision Regulations, Section 174042, lots geometric standard C, to remove public street and roadway when determining the lot area. Reading of ordinance to modify Appendix 14 Subdivision Construction Specification, Section 8 Drainage Pipe, to eliminate the use of all corrugated steel pipe for side and rear drains and drainage outfalls. Adoption of the ordinance to modify Appendix 14 Subdivision Construction Specification, Section 8 Drainage Pipe, to eliminate the use of all corrugated steel pipe for side and rear drains and drainage outfalls. Reading of ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire right-of-way required to construct the LA 73 Bluff Road, LA 928 connector project. Adoption of ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire right-of-way required to construct the LA 73 Bluff Road, LA 928 connector project. Reading of ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire the right-of-way required to construct the LA 74 to Dutchtown High School Connector project. Adoption of ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire the right-of-way required to construct the LA 74 to Dutchtown High School Connector project. Reading of ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire the right-of-way required to construct the Germany Road widening, US 61 to LA 44 project. Adoption of ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire the right-of-way required to construct the Germany Road widening, US 61 to LA 44 project. Reading of ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire right-of-way required to construct the Duplessis Road widening, US 61 to LA 73 project. Adoption of ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire right-of-way required to construct the Duplessis Road widening, US 61 LA 73 project. Reading of ordinance to amend the transportation impact fee ordinance and adoption of ordinance to amend the transportation impact fee ordinance.
Thank you very much, Cinnamon. At this time, having heard the entire agenda, on the previous video calls that we have done, we have gone into the public comment period. But we would like tonight to welcome David Alexander, our superintendent of schools, to the meeting, and he will do a presentation for all of us and for the public. And then after he has finished up, we will go into that public comment period. So, David, I see you've joined us. Thank you so much for being with us. We're not hearing David.
Maybe a good thing. Is this
Hi,
better?
David.
Is this better?
Yes, thank you very much
Okay.
again for being with us.
Yeah, well, thank you for having us here. We really appreciate it. We're honored to be here. We're always grateful to be able to share information here. So we are so grateful that the Parish Council would have us here. President Quinmall, thank you for allowing us to be here, sir. And look, we want to be efficient with our time. So obviously we're here to share some information with you. You should have some things in front of you. One you should have is a document that has 3 really good-looking Ascension Parish students on it in their graduation cap and gown. And then underneath that is a list of next round of capital improvement projects that we would like to begin to start on should our community agree that these are important. You know, for a long, long time, Ascension Parish has been using 15.08 mils to do capital improvement projects through bond funding. And so we are in a position now where we could, at the permission of our community, sell $140 million worth of bonds. And with that funding, we could do our next group of items that's been on the list. Look, we've had a long list for a long time. If y'all will remember back in 2016, we asked for a similar thing, and it was around 120 million, and that was so that we could build 3 primary schools and a middle school, and a long list of other things there as well. But the big pieces in the last bond was the 3 primaries and a middle. We opened one of those primary schools in the fall of 2019. We'll open another primary school and a middle school this fall, 2020, and the final primary school will be opened next year, the fall of 2021. And that's been really useful to us. Not only we know that educationally it's good when we can keep primary schools at or around that 600 to 700 to 800 number at the most. I mean, it's getting a little crowded there. In middle schools, more like 900 to 1100 is where we want to keep things. And so what we're able to do is to accomplish that with these new buildings. And it's even more important now, obviously, to reduce crowd sizes in our school buildings and things like that, given this pandemic that we're in. So what our next step is now is on August 15th, and I know that early voting begins July 25th, is to put in front of our voters another extension where we sell $140 million of bonds. It will not change the amount of money that, or the millage amount for our taxpayers, we can still do this with a 15.08. And we can do a number of items. One is, and it's been talked about, look, when I was a principal at Dutchtown High School, which I left there in 2011 to become the director of high schools, but even back in 2009 and 10 and 11, I can remember being asked, when are we going to build another high school? Because Dutchtown was growing to, you know, to that 14, 15, 1600 mark, and Santa Monica was getting big, and I would always say, I don't know. Well, I became the director of high schools and left in 2016, in February of 2016, and the same question was going on, and I know that question was being asked even here in the last round of capital improvement projects that we did. When are we going to build a new high school? Well, the future is now. We want to build that new high school now. And so you should be seeing some things that on the screen there that, you know, the site is at the Prairieville Primary School location there where we built all of that Prairieville Primary where we bought property there. That's at the corner of Parker Road and 929. And so we have the adequate site there. As a matter of fact, in the 2016 bond renewal, bond extension, we actually did use some of that money back in 2016 to actually do some site preparations. And so that's a project we're really excited about. But I don't want to overlook the other projects that are on that list that you see there. For example, the East Ascension High School makeover. Just remember, that is not just a renovation that's going to be there. We're talking about sort of like we did at Prairieville Middle School, and what we've done at Gonzales Primary School is flipping that school. There's going to be some demolition. That's a $27 million project to really upgrade that facility, not just do some cosmetics to it. There's mechanical things there that need to be upgraded, and certainly we want to make that happen. And then another thing is on all of our playing surfaces and all of our stadiums, we put artificial turf. And that brings us, you know, there's a lot of school systems around us, St. Charles Parish, Livingston Parish, Zachary, they all have artificial turf. And we've been wanting to do that too, but we've had a bigger need for school buildings and things like that at the primary and middle school level, but that fit into this list. And then certainly you can see some of the other things that are in there. You know, that includes technology. There's some things on the West Bank with Donaldsonville High School and some things at Lorry Middle School. And then, you know, we obviously, as a growing parish, property acquisitions is something we've always got to be sensitive to, and then security improvements. So we're really about done with the 2016 bond list. You know, once we open Sugar Mill Primary in the fall of 2021, that'll be done. And so it really is a good time to start talking about the next round. So I'm here for questions, comments, and we have Chad Lynch here, who's the Chief Operation Director, and of course Jackie, who puts all of these sort of visual things together for us in our public relations and good messages, public information officer, second to none in Louisiana there. So what can we do to answer some questions?
Gentlemen, does anyone, I see some hands, David, so I will call on them kind of in the order that I've seen them, and I would expect there'll be some others. Councilman Lawler.
Thank you very much for the presentation. One thing that I'd like to reiterate, first of all, I'd like to say I'm very much in support of this renewal. I think it's very needed for this parish. Number one, our schools are a huge driver in keeping property values up. And without our schools, our property values fall down, and it's a very vicious cycle that we can put ourselves in. Also, as transportation chairman, I can tell you, we've looked a lot into the Highway 73 corridor. One of the biggest drivers in traffic on that Highway 73 corridor is traffic coming from the Prairieville area down through there to get to Dutchtown. And building a new high school is going to change those traffic patterns, and we'll be able to alleviate a lot of that traffic. And I also have to give a lot of thanks to Mr. Lynch and other members of the school board who have worked with us to look ahead with this new high school and how we're going to alter traffic around there to make it less burdensome on the area. So I think everybody's doing a really good job of working together to make sure that we not only have some great schools, but we're going to help traffic in different areas. So I appreciate that, and I fully support this. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilman Lawler. We appreciate that. And I agree with everything you said, honestly.
Councilman Melanson.
Yes, Mr. Alexander. Just wanted to let y'all know I hope y'all get 100% support for every dollar that y'all are trying to seek, and I think I could argue it's the best money spent year after year after year in this parish is our schools, and I also just want to express that that we're all aware of the tough decisions that y'all are facing or going to be facing, and nobody envies the position y'all are in. And no matter what y'all do that y'all believe is in the best interest for us and our children, there's going to be some large percentages of people who don't always agree. And I just want to let y'all know that may God bless y'all. I hope that people will agree that with whatever decision y'all make here in the future was best for us, and that we support y'all. And thank you.
Thank you, sir. Very grateful for those words.
Thank you. David, at risk of being redundant, I think most of us could say exactly the same thing. So I thank all of you for allowing those two gentlemen to have spoken for you in most cases. And I see Councilman Robert would like to make a statement.
I was just curious. I know the school board has acquired some property in the Brittany Tower, Highway 44 area. Toward Highway 22 into the parish. Is there any type of date or any type of vision of building a school there, high school and or middle school?
And I'll let Chad come behind me and talk, because he's been part of that property acquisition and some of the plans that I know. That piece of property, we acquired that property back in around 2014 or 15, somewhere like that. It's been for a while. And so obviously that'll be driven, that's a great question, and that'll be driven by growth, additional growth, and where we have need for things. But Chad, anything you want to add to that?
When we bought the property, we were looking at a future feeder in that area, just trying to have a property inventory. Our feeder structure is usually a high school with 2 middle schools under it, and each middle school 2 primaries under it. So we were searching for that property inventory, looking ahead for the growth that's going to happen in that area. But as you said, David, the residential growth and the student enrollment growth is what would trigger us actually looking ahead to building that school. You'd have to reach the triggers at the other high schools, including the new Parker High School, to set in motion the building of that school. I hope it answered the question.
Thank you.
Thank
Great
you.
job.
Anyone else have a question or comment for the superintendent? Mr. President.
Thank you, Chairwoman. Yes, obviously we've indicated at several meetings how important education is to our parish. Our kids are our future, obviously. But yeah, I am excited, and Councilman Lawler touched on it, is the changing in our traffic patterns due to a new high school. That is something that I think we all look forward to. I think it's going to benefit our parish greatly. With that being said, I would also like to thank the school board members and David as well for his continued effort and work with the Ascension Parish government as we work on projects together. We were at a ribbon cutting today, and Councilman Lambert's district and Councilman Cagnolati was there with us to celebrate one of these ventures where we came together to solve a problem. There's drainage issues on school board property, and Mr. Chad Lynch has been working with us and ensuring that we can build drainage on school board property that helps residents around those areas. So I just want to reach out and thank them for working with the parish council as well as the administration on a lot of these issues, and we look forward to that continued success and working together. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. I agree. Thank you all. Dempsey, John, Chad, we had that discussion, I think maybe more than a year ago now, about getting that parking lot built there so that we could get all those cars off of that major road there at the Galvez School. And thank you so much. I thank all of you for the opportunity to do that work.
We appreciate that. We did enjoy working with y'all.
It was a win-win for all of us.
Yes, it was. I know Dempsey's relieved, and I'm sure the parish president is too. That's when you start getting those complaints, is when all those folks are backed up on that road. So Thank you very much. I think the next one we have to try to solve that problem with is there at Parker, and I know that the work is being done to try to accomplish that, or the talks are going on to try to accomplish that. Okay, so David, do you have anything else you want to add, or if not, we thank you.
Other than just gratitude for your generosity to give us some time on your agenda tonight, and thank you for your support. We're grateful for that as well. And we look forward to our continued partnership to making this community continue to be one of the best around in the nation. There's no doubt. Absolutely. Well, our schools are the driver of that, and so we appreciate you all. And we will, at this time, allow you to get home to your families. I know this is a busy season for you, and you have a lot of decisions to make, and we'll be prayerful for you as you all make those for yourselves and for our children. All right. Likewise. Thank you. Thank you.
All right. Thank you. Okay. At this time, Cinnamon, we will go into the public comment period. And so if there is anyone who has already sent something in that you want to read for tonight, or if we are going to be just silent for a while awaiting any comment, let me know.
So we have two callers. The first one is Allison Delat, and she's speaking on item 10AA, which is the very last item on the agenda. And it is the ordinance to amend the transportation impact fee ordinance. Again, her name is Allison Delat.
Okay, thank you very much. Allison, this is Terry Cazzo. How are you tonight?
We have two callers. The first one is Allison Delat.
I'm getting some feedback, Cinnamon.
Very last. And it is the ordinance to amend the transportation impact fee ordinance. Again, her name is Allison Delat.
The caller is watching the meeting, Terry, so it's giving you some feedback.
Okay, is that what it is? Very good. Hi, Allison. Glad to have you with us tonight. If you don't mind, please mute your TV so that we're not getting this feedback.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Good to hear from you, Allison.
Thank you. I just wanted to call and voice my support to raise the traffic impact fees to our developers.
Well, we appreciate your call. Do you have anything else you'd like to add?
That's it this time, but thank you.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your call in. Okay, Cinnamon, we're ready.
The next caller is Denise Drago, and she's going to speak on the same item, 10AA.
Thank you. Hi, Denise. Are you with us?
Yes, I am. I
Hi.
just wanted to call in and first of all, thank y'all for the job you do and letting us have this opportunity to speak tonight. I'm from District 4. And I am all in favor of raising the traffic impact fees to 85%. I think we could do a lot with this because with all the buildings that they have coming up, and our roads definitely need it. And so I am 110% in favor of this passing.
Thank you. Do you have any other comments you need to make?
No, ma'am.
Thank you very much. It was great to hear from you.
Thank you.
Okay, Cinnamon, where are we now?
So that's all the callers we have. We don't have any emails, and the public comment period is up. The 30 minutes is up, Terry. So you can proceed with the agenda.
Okay, thank you very much. So having closed the public comment period, we will move on to the parish president's report. Mr. President?
Madam Chairwoman, can you hear me?
Yes.
All right, now can you see me?
Now I can see you. How about that? It's like
members
that.
of the council. We're excited to announce that the Grants Department today received notice of a reward for our flood mitigation grant in the amount of $1.6 million. These funds are made available to FEMA and State of Louisiana Governor's Office of Homeland Security. They will be used to elevate 10 homes that have been selected from the FEMA repetitive loss list. So we're excited to receive this amount of money. We have in the hopper another $3-point-something million being applied for, so we hope to get that as well. We are also making progress on our parish president's litter initiative. We had over 30 applicants apply. We've hired 6 thus far. We're aiming to kick off the initiative during the first week of August. We'll keep you posted. You hear us talk a lot about lunch and learns, where we try to go to different parishes and basically steal their ideas, but also build better relationships so that in the event of a COVID crisis, we can kind of lean on other experts for advice. Recently, in an effort to explore alternative solutions to the drainage issues resulting from the flash floods, the administration took a couple trips to Jefferson Parish. We know that some of the council members will be going on a Monday trip. It was very, very interesting. Not just the pumps, but if you get a chance to go Monday or next week, please pay attention to their SCADA system and ask a million questions about it. But also the twofer. And the one thing I like most about it was there's a Pontiff Park, which is a full-fledged park with tennis courts, a walking path, the whole 9 yards, but it's a dry detention pond. And so essentially in a flash flood, it holds a large amount of water for a very short period of time. And, within an hour of the rain coming to a halt, it all drains out and you go back to playing tennis. So it's a way to, to improve recreation and drainage, particularly as it relates to flash floods. Lastly, we're excited to announce that Ricky Compton has received a scholarship to attend the National Recreation and Parks Association Director School. This is an exclusive 2-year program to develop parks and recreation directors. So we're excited for Ricky. Not only did he apply for it and get accepted, but he was awarded a scholarship, which saves the parish considerable money. We're also excited about Brandon O'Day and John LeBlanc. They've recently completed their ITIL foundation certification. If you're not an IT guru, you probably won't recognize those initials, but that's a very prestigious award, and kudos to those guys. Can't say enough about our IT department. Brian Martinez has recently attended the Esri User Conference. This year was virtually, but it's essentially where GIS professionals from around the world get together to discuss solutions, GIS solutions and mapping technology. We have big plans for Brian. We're excited that he's on board, and we look forward to working with him in the future. And lastly, last week, Darren DePlessers, our chief building official, completed a 1-week training seminar through the Construction Exam Center on commercial mechanical inspections. After completing the course, he passed the commercial mechanical inspector certification. This gets in line with his other 29 certifications that he has. So we're excited, to see Darren, climbing the ladder and seeking every certification he could possibly get his hands on. We look forward, or I hope you guys look forward to hearing more about employees' professional development. You'll notice in our budget in next year, it's going to be a huge, huge push from us. I mean, the bottom line, we can't be a better organization if we're not a smarter organization. And when you consider the fact that they developed tomorrow's technology the night before, we have to have people out there constantly staying abreast of the new trends, the new technologies, everything from LiDAR to SCADA, the whole 9 yards. There's a plethora of technological solutions out there, and we just need to get our hands around them and implement them. So with that, I'll take any questions, or if you have any comments.
Sure. Thank you very much. And congratulations to all those employees, and thank you to them for the efforts that they are making to further their education and become better qualified to do the work that you all have charged them and the citizens have charged them to do. We're very grateful for that. So, gentlemen, does anyone have any questions of the CAO? Thank you very much, then. Oh, I see some hands going up now. So, Chase Melanson.
I just want to make a quick comment. I was able to make the field trip with John and President Quitmore and Ms. Phillips last Friday, and what we've seen was pretty impressive. And the fact that a lot of it is done with some of the most basic, cheapest instrumentation. If anybody who's who's in the industrial field, instrumentation on vessels and different pump stations and how they coincide with each other, how we could monitor water levels upstream and know if it's even necessary to kick on the Marvin Bro pump, or whenever we get these flash flooding, exactly at what time, how many hours before we need to kick on pumps here and there. We could have Henderson Bayou, Sorrento, and Marvin Bro and any potential substations all working together simultaneously. And it's very, very impressive to see. I would urge anybody who can get away from work and family to take the field trip, because what Jefferson Parish has going on is extremely impressive. That's it.
Hey, Chase, just to follow up on that, some of their pumps, because of their SCADA system, do not even need to be manned. When the gauges hit a certain level, they kick on, and they can monitor them remotely, and so it was impressive. It really was.
Excellent. Mr. Lawler.
Thank you. John, some questions about the litter pickup.
Yep.
I know we're trying to hire some people. There were some questions, though, about cost. How much are we paying per hour?
It is 11. It's the minimum, I think, 11.66, but I'll get you that exact number.
Wow.
I'll double check, but it's somewhere around that.
Is that 40 hours a week?
It'd be 32.
32. The reason I'm asking is, before we were paying $96,000 to the sheriff, and I was assuming around $8 an hour, which is $16,000 a year. How many employees are we looking at?
Looking at 6 now. We may go to a third team, but we're only doing this 3 days a week, so it's not a 5-day a week. It's 3 days a week, but it won't exceed $100,000, which is what the previous contract was.
Well, the previous contract was about $96,000, but are we also going to have to pay benefits? Are we going to have to pay benefits?
No.
No? Are we going to have supervisors?
We do. We have 2 supervisors. Okay, I can give you their names.
Well, I'm failing to see how this is really a better deal than what we had before, because right now we've gone at least a month and a half, or we will have gone a month and a half without cleaning ditches by hand and without litter pickup. Yeah. I know we just cut some grass along Airline, and we didn't pick up litter first, and there's water everywhere. I mean, there's trash everywhere.
I'll send you the spreadsheet. And so you've been around long enough to know that for every ordinance you pass, there's unintended consequences. And Bobby Weber will even tell you this. When they passed the Judicial Reform Act, there's not that many nonviolent offenders in parish jail. And by the time he staffs his kitchen detail, his, janitorial, custodial, essentially, if you look January and February, which was pre-COVID, and March and April, we averaged about 2.5 inmates a day for less than 8 hours, for the simple fact that he just tells you. I mean, there's not that many nonviolent offenders. And so it's not his fault. It's just a function of, a legislative change. So it was literally, I'm not going to say impossible, but it was very hard for him to find us the 6 to 8 employees, which or inmates that were supposed to be covered by this amount. So if you look in January, we averaged 2.2 inmates a day, and I think in February it was 2.4 or 2.5. And we were, according to the contract, was to have between 6 and 8 inmates. And so it just became hard to produce nonviolent trustees.
I understand that, but were they working 5 days a week?
I think they were just working 4 days a week, the same time that DPW. But in most days, they didn't work a full day.
Yeah, I think there were some efficiencies that could have been handled. My concern is that this is not going to be the most efficient program, that we're going to have issues with retaining people to work in ditches and to pick up trash on the side of the road. I think it's going to be hard to get people to do that. I'd really like to monitor this program and make sure it's efficient. If not, we can go back to the sheriff and see if we can renew that deal with him, because frankly, I think we're going to have a hard time continuing with this, and really to be in the middle of hurricane season and not having crews out there hand cleaning ditches or having to pull other drainage employees that could be doing other work. We're short right now, and this is not the opportune time to be short. I don't think this is well
And we were
produced at the
short,
time.
and we were short in the previous methodology, and it was no fault to anyone. It was a function of the way that the criminal justice reform changed. And so, yes, we'll have a high turnover rate. Anytime you hire people at that level, you get a high turnover rate. Our vegetation department has the same things. And we'll adapt and adjust and if it's not effective, we'll go for a plan B.
Well, I think that's the key. We need to monitor to make sure it's efficient and effective, and get regular updates on that. Finally, with Ricky Compton going back to college, has he chosen a fraternity yet?
I'll check with him.
Thank you very much. Any other questions or comments? Coach Thomas.
Yes, thank you, Chair Lady. I wanted to, John, the process of hiring these kids. Are we hiring kids? Is it a different age group, or is there, you have to be a certain age?
You have to meet the minimum criteria to be a parish employee. So it's not. So these are basically young adults, and we talk about them like they're kids. It's young adults.
So what's the how you go about hiring them? I mean,
the same way we do other employees. It's posted.
Is this men and women, right?
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Coach. Mr. Ogeron. Corey, your mic's not on.
Hey, John, I just pulled out my trusty Texas Instrument calculator, and based on the numbers you gave to us, 6 employees at $11.66 an hour is what their salary is going to be. When you throw in our portions of comp and tax and Social Security, you're looking at the project with 6 individuals, not counting the supervisor, costing us over $150,000. Is that about what you guys are figuring?
I said 32 hours. It's going to be 24 hours. They're working 3 days, 8-hour days.
24 hours. Okay, so that'll cut it down by a quarter. Fantastic then. Okay.
Mr. Robert.
Still puts us at 120,000.
I'm sorry, Corey, I thought.
Well, no, that's okay. I was just going to tell him, that still puts us at a 120, not counting the supervisor, not counting any other incidental costs that we're dealing with. So I hope this guess, this chance that we're taking definitely works out, that the work is that much better than what we were getting previously. But yeah, we're going to have to keep a close eye on this one.
Yeah.
But thanks for the update, John. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Certainly do.
No problem, man.
I'm sorry to have interrupted you, Corey. Now, Councilman Robert.
From what I'm understanding is that that Bobby Weber does not have the inmates at this point in time to be able to renew any type of contract or do work with them. Will it be an option whenever that does change to be able to continue that service or do that service with less inmates, number one? And number two, would it be another option to actually bid this out as a contract and let a private company do it so they would have a more diverse and bigger demographic to hire from? Because, I mean, this is a job that a lot of kids and high school kids could get that they can't qualify for by having to be a parish employee.
And the answer to both of your questions is yes. We'll always look at every option.
So what
we
is
can't try all 3 options at the same time, so we'll start with this one.
Are we actually in communication with the Sheriff's Department to have some inmates whenever they have enough to be able to continue the litter patrol or the program?
I haven't reached out to Bobby about it, no.
Okay.
And I don't think the economy of scales don't work for Bobby to have 2 inmates, or, it works when you have 8 and you can have security.
Yeah, I get that.
John, thank you for your report on this. I appreciate the update. I know that this is a kind of, for lack of a better term, a pilot. We're trying something a little new, and we want you to maybe every 60 to 90 days get back with us and let us know how it's going. And if you decide in the interim between that time that you have to do something different, we would just appreciate you letting us know.
Will do.
Thank you. Any other questions? Anything else from the CAO? Mr. President, any comments from you?
Yeah, just to touch base on the litter thing. The court system has, there obviously the sheriff is still monitoring people who do community service. And so we've had some litter pick up through them. And you've seen some of that around the parishes. We've seen some orange bags. Another component to this is that we have the opportunity to look at some young folks who might want to come on full time at the parish. We have a lot of aging population, a lot of retirement. So this gives a good pilot program to see what kind of work quality we got in these individuals and possibly offer them full-time positions. So we're excited about the pilot program. We're excited about it. We want to monitor it. We want to make sure it's efficient. And yeah, this may be our new labor force in the future. Young kids that want to go out and do this kind of work and prove themselves. And if we notice that they got the work ethic to bring them on full time, we'll obviously offer that to them. So this is a type of a step program possibly. So, but again, it's a pilot program. We're going to monitor it closely, make sure the financials are there, and we're happy to report the results to the council.
Thank you so much. All right, gentlemen, let's move along. We have, the consent agenda has been read. At this time, does anyone have any desire to remove any items from the consent agenda?
Motion to approve, Madam Chair. John Cagnolati.
I've not heard from
His hand up.
I do.
Okay, and Corey, I thought you had notified me that you had some you wanted to remove as well.
Madam Chair, I spoke with a couple of other individuals and they cleared some of the questions I had for them. So I'm good to go.
Perfect. Mr. Robert.
I just had some questions about item V as in vector and AA and BB.
So do you have questions and you want to remove those?
Well, however you would prefer to do it. I just had some questions on those three items. If you want to remove those three, we could probably do them at the same time.
All right, so let's do that. Cinnamon, help me keep track of this. You have V. Which other ones, Joe?
AA and BB.
AA and BB. You just want to ask some questions, or you want to pull them from consent?
I just have some questions on them.
Okay, well, go ahead and ask your question on item V.
On V, I was just curious, the amount of the contract for the past year that we had with this company, and if it's a large enough amount to put this contract out for bid for the laundry service.
Who's going to be taking questions on these matters?
John, see if we can get it back on here.
Oh, 1 second. BD? Hey, is this BB or DD?
The first one was V as in Victor.
It is a contract with UniFirst of Baton Rouge for industrial uniforms. What was the cost last year with that contract?
I'll have to pull that. I don't know off the top of my head.
Okay. And the same thing with AA and BB. Is that something you can pull?
We can.
Now?
I have Ken Dawson in there. He's going to check on AA and BB. I'm told by Ken that AA and BB are extended for time.
No, I understand.
Not cost.
I understand they're extended for time, but I'm just curious as to what that year span before during that time produced as far as how much we paid for those services.
We'll pull that up and get with you.
Well, maybe, Chairman, it would be better if we did just remove them, and maybe by the time we get to those, we might be able to discuss them. I don't know.
I'm comfortable with that, Joel. I think that's a good idea. So AA, do you also want to pull V? V is in Victor.
V is in Vector,
Okay.
AA, and BB.
I gotcha. Item G under general business will become V. H will become AA. And I will become BB.
Thank you so much.
All under general business. That gives everybody a little bit of time. So now, since those items are being removed from consent, the chair would entertain a motion to approve the remaining consent agenda.
Motion to approve, Madam Chair. John Cagnolati.
Have a motion by Councilman Cagnolati and a second by Councilman Robert to approve the remaining agenda of consent. Are there any further questions? Any objections? Hearing none and not seeing any either, that motion passes. We will proceed on to general business. A, approval of substantial completion, DPWE, garage addition, and tire shop renovation, J. Reed Constructors. Dean, are you there?
Motion to approve, Madam Chair.
I have a motion by Councilman Melanson and a second by Councilman Mason to approve. Are there any questions of Dean? All right, any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. We'll have to wait for Cinnamon to get back. Cinnamon, we didn't end up needing Dean. And that motion passed unanimously. Item B, approval to extend the time period for Ascension Parish employees. Have a motion by Councilman Cagnolati, a second by Councilman Ogeron to extend the time period. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item C requires the reading of a notice of consideration of action regarding the ad valorem taxes for the Ascension Parish Public Health Center. And Cinnamon, will you please read?
I'm going to read it for Malcolm.
Oh, thank you.
Notice is hereby given that the Ascension Parish Council the Parish Council of Ascension Parish, State of Louisiana will meet Thursday, August 6, 2020 at 6 p.m. at Donaldsonville Courthouse, 300 Homer Street, second floor, Donaldsonville, Louisiana, at which time there will be consideration of action regarding calling an election to authorize the renewal of the levy of the collection of an existing ad valorem tax for the purpose of maintaining and supporting Ascension Parish Public Health Center, including buildings, maintenance expenses, and other related health care expenses.
Thank you very much. That notice has been read. Item D, authorization of $5,000 donation to the Baton Rouge Food Bank. And Councilman Cagnolati, Chairman of Finance, will give us an update on that one.
Thank you, Council Chairwoman. The parish received a letter, and I met with the parish president and John Diaz on this. The Baton Rouge Food Bank service, I think it's a 7 or 8 parish area, which includes Ascension, and they work in conjunction with the churches in our area. St. Teresa Food Pantry is one of them, and they do a very good job. And typically, we have a budget for contributions to these nonprofits that benefit people. And they sent this letter to us asking for an early donation. And they requested $2,500, and I think we should give them $5,000. Last year, we gave them 10. So we could give them, the parish president suggested maybe giving them 5 now. And then normally they get 10,000 at Thanksgiving time. And we'll look to give them the balance, another 5,000 at Thanksgiving. So that's what we're trying to do. And I'll make a motion to that effect.
I have a motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert and a second by Councilman Cagnolati to, I know, I heard you, Michael, but
This is Michael.
CAG had actually gotten the original motion. So we got it all. Cinnamon, we got a motion and a second here. You can figure out in the tape who actually got them. And we will do the $5,000 donation. Does anybody have any questions of Mr. Cagnolati or anyone else regarding this issue? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Delighted to see us make a larger contribution to the food bank. Item E. This is a discussion. I think that Ken Dawson and John Diaz are going to give a kind of a high-level view of our USDA project status. And if they want to consolidate E and F and have the discussion of the PUA financial situation at the same time, I'm perfectly fine with that. So, John?
Ms. Terry, I'm going to let Ken borrow my desk for a second.
Oh, great. Hi,
He doesn't
Ken.
get too comfortable.
The seat feels familiar.
Yeah, except that you're probably going to have to lower it down a tad.
Yeah, right. That's right. Well, look, thank you, Madam Chair. And I know we're discussing the USDA contract and what we're moving forward with that particular project. You know, September 28th of 2018, basically there was an application that was approved from USDA to move forward with the project. At that particular time, the administration never signed the agreement. They had 365 days to sign it and move forward. That was never done. I know at the end of September 2019, they were still looking for some of the approvals or the conditions to be resolved. That didn't happen. So that didn't happen on the last administration. I can say that under this administration, at the beginning of the year, we did meet with USDA along with GSA to discuss the status of the project, what it needed to have to move forward. The meeting went very well. They stated the things that we had to do. I even had a conversation with them just, I guess this week or maybe at the end of last week, sometime the weeks run together. And the situation is the funds have been obligated for Ascension Parish. There is no set deadline. They have no problem with if there's an update letter stating where we are and what we're doing. It's not an issue with USDA, okay, and that's the conversation we had with them. Also, GSA requested that they send a letter to us stating that, and we're waiting to receive that from them.
Thank you very much on that issue. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Ken Dawson? All right, so Ken, you want to pick up with F, which is the financial status of parish utilities?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. I'm glad to say that we had a very good meeting this morning with our finance department, discussing the status of the parish of utilities. And of course, the conversation was in relationship to the USDA and whether we had enough money to even service the debt. I can say that in the meeting, looking at the current budget, current status of the budget, and even information that was provided by GSA and some of their numbers, we would not have the required amount to actually service the debt at this point. Now, not to say that it can't be looked at and reviewed, and that's what we are interested in doing. We also are considering bringing in additional financial assistance to help review the numbers to make sure that we're in a position to actually service it. I think that looking more into the operations of PUA, I think there may be some savings there that we can look at as far as operational. But I can definitely say that looking at the current budget and looking at even the proposed USDA budget that was from USDA, the GSA prepared, we just don't have the amount of money at this particular point to service the debt. And we want to review it some more. So the 60 days that Councilman Ogeron allowed in the utility meeting, we want to use those days to really drill down into every aspect of it and make sure that we're in good financial standing.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Does anyone have any questions of Mr. Dawson at this time? Mr. Ogeron.
Thank you, Chair. Ken, thanks for talking with me this afternoon and excusing my tardiness, or should I say my absence from our scheduled meeting.
It's okay.
the rain on the roof was kind of allowed me to take a little bit of a nap, man, and I appreciate you not getting on me for that one.
Okay.
But our conversation and your statement just now is leads me to ask a couple of more questions. My appreciation was that when we entered into this determination to increase rates, we did so with anticipation that we were going to take on this project. And so some of the questions that I'm fielding, and I know some of the questions that Coach Thomas has been fielding, has been what's been done with that money, that increase in rates that we were hopefully putting aside or should have put aside to address the work that needed to be done out there. What's happened to those funds?
Well, as you remember, Councilman Orgeron, the final move to get it to the final rate was done in January. So yes, we haven't received the total amount until January. So based on the highest bill, it's almost take 30 to 60 days before they really start to hit the books. Okay. Some of the estimation, some of that money, and we're looking at it. We want to make sure that it's not rolled into just an operating budget. Okay. So I can say that right now we are reviewing it. Again, it was approved in January. It didn't move forward until a few months after that. And keep in mind that during that time also COVID hit. We also had a forgiving of paying bills for a while. So now everything is kind of being lined out toward these last few months. So I can say that, and I appreciate it. I appreciate the fact that you give us some time to really look at this for 60 days, because it's going to take that review, and hopefully things will line out a little better in the next few months after people are paying their COVID relief bills that they had during that particular time. And so we can see exactly how the funds are lining out.
Good. Like I said, it's a concern. It's a concern. But I do also understand from the conversation we had earlier that you've spoken with individuals at USDA, and they've told us that November of this year is not a deadline to accept the grant. Is that my understanding?
Yeah, that is. They basically said that it wasn't a deadline, that the funds have been obligated. And those are the words that they exactly used with me. The funds have been obligated. Now, what they would like to have is an update of where we are and what we're doing. Conversation with them this week, and we'll be speaking with them again. Again, as I said, GSA has requested a letter from them stating their position and our position on the application, so we're expecting to have that soon.
Fantastic. I've got no further questions, Chairwoman.
Thank you. Mr. Thomas.
Thank you, Chair Lady. Mr. Dawson,
sir,
appreciate the meeting. And my question is, what is the amount of money that we've collected in 2019 that with the rate increase? Do you have any recollection of what y'all have collected?
I think it's about 280.
Between July and January. Is there any number that you can maybe throw out and say we have collected? How much of it?
The budget had projected around 280 in water revenue, for that increase. But I can pull those numbers and look at them definitely with you, Coach. Because again, as I said, from when the final rate was in January, being the COVID situation, there is some delay in those amounts that were initially collected. So I can pull those numbers and get them to you. I don't know exactly off the top of my head what they are.
Okay, now my other question is, and I know we talked about, where are we with this project? Because we've been dealing with this for the last 4 months, and I think the people of Ascension, the people of the West Bank, is pretty much they deserve what they're paying for something and they're not getting it.
Sure. Well, and that's the exercise that we're going through now, Councilman, is to determine, where the money is, how can we pay for it, and to make sure that the parish is in good standing. As I said, we have met with the engineers, GSA. We met with Owen and White, who's also working with them as a sub. As far as the scope of the project, and even the PER, the preliminary engineering report, that has already been submitted to USDA. So they have a lot of the information of basically what the project encompasses. So now it's just a financial exercise to make sure that we understand exactly, where those funds are, and to ensure that we're able to service the debt, and that's what we're doing. We feel pretty good about it. We feel confident that we can move forward and come up with an answer and a recommendation to the council.
I would hope that we can move forward with this project and get this thing going, because again, we're dealing with the health and safety of the people, and I think they are deserving of getting good water on the West Bank. The pipes and the water meters have been promised, and it's almost like buying a car and never receiving the car, paying for the car and never receiving the car. So I'm hoping that we can move forward, and if I can get a commitment from the administration that this situation would be looked into much earlier than what we're doing. Right now, I think we at a point now where, the water here on the West Bank, and even just as important as the drainage is to the Ascension Parish, we need to have it done. And we can't continue to kick the can down the road. We need to get on this and get it done. Have a commitment from the administration that we're going to get this done. And I know this wasn't something that the previous administration took upon, but again, we have to get this project moving forward.
Coach, I'm going to step in for a second. One, Ken was getting a little too comfortable in his old seat. Two, I just want to say that this project is important to us, and I know a new administration and COVID are not excuses, but they are a fact. I also want you to know that we understand that this is an old system that needs to be modernized. We also understand that this is important to the quality of water. We also understand there's a correlation between a modern water system and healthy drinking water. So we're going to work with you to do that. But what we don't want to do is buy a car and not be able to pay the note and have it repossessed. And so that is what we're trying to do, is where do we find the money? And I'll just be honest with you, Coach, on the question of where did the increased revenue went, it just got spent. And it's spread out all amongst the budget. There has been a $600,000 increase in water revenue, but it was not budgeted for this, unfortunately, for this grant. And so that's why we need to take a hard look, a 60-day look, and try to find those savings so that we can afford to pay for this grant. It's, if we borrow $9.7 million over the course of 40 years, it's going to cost us $15 million. So we just need to make sure we have a solid, stable funding source before we run out and secure these dollars. But you have our commitment that this is a top priority.
I can appreciate that, Mr. John, and we need to continue to, again, work together and work on moving things forward. So
I agree, sir.
That's it. I appreciate it. And again, we ask for that commitment to make sure that we get this water on the West Bank. And in Ascension Parish, to get the drainage done as so. So it's just as important. Thank you.
Mr. Roback.
Now, it's my understanding from what Mr. Dawson said and from what I saw this past week, myself and Coach Thomas went and had a little PowerPoint presentation with some of the engineering for this project. Now, this engineering that you showed us in the engineering reports that we do have, will that money that we're spending now and have spent now go toward the $9 million that we need to put in order to receive the monies for that grant?
So you're asking me if we're going to...
Are we getting money back to the engineering?
Currently it is not. And so currently it is not, and that's what we want to spend the next 60 days trying to figure out where can we find it. What cuts can we make?
My question is the engineering that we've done already. Mr. Dawson said that we have some engineering that we have to turn in. Is that correct? I'm assuming we paid for that, right?
Correct.
Now,
$1.2 million.
that money that we paid for that, will that money go toward the $9 million that we have got to put into this program before we start receiving that grant money from the state?
We actually get that money back.
So we are actually using money of our money now that is working for that.
Corey disagrees. Per our conversation with Glenn Cheyenne this morning, that money is recoverable.
I'm not disagreeing with you, Mr. Diaz. I got somebody in my office that asked me a question and I said no.
Yeah. So that was my first question is the money that we're currently spending is going toward the project.
Yes. I'm sorry, Joe, can you say it again?
Yeah, I was just saying, so the money that we have spent and are currently spending is going to go toward this project, is my first thing. My second thing is this is a project, after going into the meeting and seeing what it is, that is gonna, from what I was told, fix close to 100% of all the pipe and all of the water company's infrastructure. Is that correct?
If I can remember from my conversations with Cheyenne this morning, it would replace about a third of our pipes, but the ones that are in most need. Also, too, there are savings in the fact that we'll have better meters and we'll lose less water. And I've asked Cheyenne and them to give us those dollar amounts so that we can factor that in eventually. If the water meters are more accurate or collecting more money, obviously that's a new revenue stream. And if we're not wasting as much water, that would be
this full project, including our funds and their funds, will only replace 1/3 of the current in-ground piping. And out of the 2/3 of pipes that are left not replaced, how many of those pipes are damaged, or do y'all think are damaged or not up to par?
That's an engineering question.
Yeah,
GSA has done a detailed evaluation of the piping situation and which ones are degraded. That's why we're focusing on the most critical areas, the most damaged piping first. So there's information in the engineering document that can point that out, Councilman Robert, and we can go over it with you, at our next meeting in utilities, if you like.
And I guess what I'm getting at here is, okay, this is going to be a large amount of money, and I know we have to spend it, and we've got to do all this correctly. But with that said, I want to know how much of this problem are we actually fixing with this large amount of money? Thank you.
Sure.
So, gentlemen, we look forward to hearing back from you in detail, do a deep dive on both of these issues for 60 days from now. Is that correct? In the utilities meeting. Mr. Ogeron.
We're actually closer to 45 days now.
Okay. Thanks for the clarity.
Down to 30 days.
Since you just missed that meeting today at 60.
Yeah. All right, very good. So at this time, we will move on to item G, which is the item V in the consent agenda. And does anyone have any answer to Councilman Robert's questions about item V, which I am trying to find so that I can read? Gosh, it's a long way to V. It's a renewal of a master contract for professional services between Ascension Parish government and UniFirst of Baton Rouge for industrial uniforms, other clothing items, and flat supplies for an additional years from 7/25/2020 through 7/25/2021. And this was a Finance Committee recommendation. Mr. Robert, your question again.
I was curious as to even if it's a ballpark amount, to the amount that we are spending on this contract. We're talking about $100,000, we're talking about $1 million, we're talking about $50,000.
And Joel, I would just recommend we defer this or table it until purchasing can answer that question.
Chair would entertain a motion to defer.
I'm sure that these things were discussed at the Utilities Committee, or I'm sorry, the Finance Committee, but I can't provide that information for you at this point.
Mr. Melanson.
Yes, Madam Chair. I would just like to point out that these are strictly time extensions, and it states on the agenda in the ordinance that this is, it has nothing to do with adding any other monetary value. These are contracts we have. We're extending time. It's not going to cost us another penny to go ahead and extend it. I just want to point that out.
Thank you, Mr. Melanson. Mr. Cagnolati.
Right. Thank you, Madam Chair. Chase is exactly right. This was brought to us as a renewal, and it was time sensitive, so that's why we approved it in financing or sending it to the full council. There's no increase in any cost to the parish.
Motion, Mr. Chairman.
You have a motion. What's your motion, Mr. Lambert?
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to go ahead and accept the 20. Is that going to go to 2021?
Correct.
Yes, sir.
Yeah, that's what I want.
Okay, I have a motion to approve this extension.
Second.
I have a second by Mr. Melanson, and now I have a question by Mr. Robert.
And I understand that this is a timed contract, but what I'm getting at here is what is the value of this contract, and are these the types of contracts that we should be putting out for bid? Meaning, should we, whether we're going to spend this money, should it be with this company or give other companies a possibility to have a bid of this? Or what you're saying, are you saying that this is already money that we already voted on these particular jobs are doing?
This is money that they have been allocated that has not been spent yet. And so these are professional services, so it's actually RFQs.
Okay, and that's the same for AA and BB, where they're not getting any new work from, there's no new work being added to any of this from the original work that was done or voted on.
Correct. That to exceed their contract amount that's already been approved.
Thank you. Well, in that case, I'm good.
I have a motion and a second to approve the item V, which is item G now. And so are there any other questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item H, AA. Approval to extend a contract with GSA Engineering for utilities, general engineering, and technical services. Who had the motion? Mr. Ogeron?
Second.
Second by Mr. Melanson. Are there any questions? Mr. Robert?
Now it says it's for general utilities. Is this for the span of the year, or once again, is this for a limit of a contract that we voted on? Is there some type of cap within this year of that?
This contract has a cap on it.
Through August the 3rd. Go ahead, Mr. Diaz.
No, this contract has a cap on it. I'm sorry, I wish I could pull it up. And this does not allow them to spend any more that's already been approved in the cap. It just gives them more time to spend it.
Okay, that's all I need. I'll make a motion to approve.
I think I had a motion and a second to approve. So we will.
Then I withdraw.
Good job, Joe. Good job. So we have a motion and a second to approve. Any further questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item I, which is originally meeting consent. Motion by Mr. Robert to approve. Mr. Cagnolati. Second by Mr. Cagnolati to approve. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, item BB, now I, is approved. Moving on to item 9, the introduction of an ordinance. Remember, gentlemen, that this only needs one motion to introduce, one person, as it doesn't require a second. So we have an A is the introduction of an ordinance to amend Chapter 2, Administration, Article 7, Departments of Parish Government, Section 2-121, created of the Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances adopted by the Ascension Parish Council, to amend the previously adopted qualifications, and to add the Director of Technology.
Motion to approve, Madam Chair.
Motion by Mr. Cagnolati to approve. Item B, introduction of an ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from medium intensity residential to mixed use corridor 2, zoning review ID PZ 2334-20, tract B2 for Alvin and Nancy Bro, the Warren Paul Bro Irrevocable Living Trust, and Lydia Bro Perez, located on the east side of Highway 73, approximately 1,200 feet north of LA Highway 621.
Motion.
I have a motion by Councilman Dempsey Lambert to introduce. Item C, introduction of an ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from medium intensity residential to mixed use corridor 2, zoning review ID PC 2335.20, tract C1 for Alvin Paul Bro, Warren Paul Bro, and Lydia Bro Gutierrez, located on the east side of LA 73, approximately 12 feet north of LA 621.
Motion to introduce.
I have a motion by Councilman Cagnolati to introduce. Item D, introduction of an ordinance to the Unified Land Development Code, Appendix 4, Subdivision Regulations, Section 17-4032, Street Requirements, A.1.A, Density Restrictions, to add language in reference to measuring of roads.
Motion to introduce.
I have a motion to introduce by Councilman Mason. Item E, introduction of an ordinance to amend the Unified Land Development Code, Appendix 4, Subdivision Regulations, Section 17-408, Procedure for Construction, C-1-2 add and potable water and electrical power.
Motion.
I have a motion by Councilman Cagnolati to introduce. Item F, introduction of an ordinance to adopt commercial sewer rates for ACUD number 1.
Motion.
Motion but to introduce by Councilman Lawler. Item number D, public hearings. Now, keep in mind, we've already had public hearings, gentlemen, so that there are no need to go through the process of opening and closing that. So we will go from the reading of the ordinance to the moving of the ordinance. Item A, reading of an ordinance, budget amendment number 2, to amend the 2020 budget. O'Neill. We're not hearing O'Neill.
All right. An ordinance to amend the ordinance approving, adopting, appropriating the 2020 operating and capital budgets for the parish of Ascension, adopted by the Ascension Parish Council on the 21st day of November 2019. Section 1, the Ascension Parish Council hereby ordains that the ordinance approving, adopting, appropriating the 2020 operating and capital budgets for the parish of Ascension is hereby amended, approved, and appropriated as follows. Operating budget, general fund, credit $1,442,000, ad valorem taxes, animal shelter. Expenditures, appropriations, CARA, minus $350,000. Health unit, animal shelter. Revenues, miscellaneous revenues, animal shelter, and the governmental $40,000. Miscellaneous revenues, animal shelter, $500. Expenditures, salary exempt, $61,500. Salary non-exempt, $95,000. FICA tax expense, $12,000. Retirement, $12,000. Health, life, dental insurance, $38,000. Health savings account expense, $4,000. Workers' comp insurance, $1,000. Utilities, $1,000. Telephone, $7,000. Equipment rentals, $4,000. Miscellaneous rentals, $500. Maintenance and supplies, vehicles and equipment, $5,000. Professional services, non-capital, $6,000. Dues and subscriptions, $500. Fire, casualty, and general liability insurance, $3,500. Vehicle and equipment insurance, $2,000. Office supplies, $6,000. Operating supplies, $35,000. Fuel, $7,000. Travel, training, $500. Miscellaneous expense, $2,000. Animal services fund to establish a new fund. Revenues, ad valorem taxes, animal shelter, $1,442,000. Miscellaneous revenues, animal shelter, and the government, $40,000. Miscellaneous revenues, animal shelter, $500. Expenditures and other financing uses, salary exempt, $61,500, salary non-exempt, $95,000, FICA taxes, $12,000, retirement, $12,000, health, life, dental insurance, $38,000, health savings account expense, $4,000, workers' comp insurance, $1,000, utilities, $1,000, telephone, $7,000, equipment rentals, $4,000, miscellaneous rentals, $500, maintenance and supplies, vehicles and equipment, $5,000, professional services, non-capital, $6,000, dues and subscriptions, $500, fire casualty and general liability insurance, $3,500, vehicle and equipment insurance, $2,000, office supplies, $6,000, operating surplus supplies, $35,000, fuel, $7,000, travel and training, $500, appropriation and grants, $350,000, major repairs, buildings, $125,000, miscellaneous expense, $2,000. The ordinance has been submitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Motion to adopt, Madam Chair.
I have a motion by Mr. Cagnolati, a second by Mr. Mason to move the ordinance. Are there any questions? Any Mr. Mawson.
Yes, ma'am. So this is an amendment. What exactly are we changing in the budget? I see we had the line item, but is there anything we're actually changing? Are we just to our budget with the new millage for animal shelter?
I believe that's the case. Mr. Parrington, would you like to elaborate?
Well, you're taking money out the general fund and moving it to the animal fund. That's essentially what you're doing. You're amending it that way because the money was paid into the general fund. Now it's being moved to what it's supposed to be done.
Thank you. Any other questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item D. Reading of an ordinance to amend the Ascension Parish zoning map from conservation to mixed-use corridor, lot 391, formerly a portion of the Ruby Pollard property for Frank Credito, located on the north side of Airline Highway, approximately 3,400 feet east of John LeBlanc Boulevard, zoning review ID PZ 227.20. Chair would entertain a motion to move the ordinance.
Motion to move the ordinance.
Oh, I'm sorry. Go ahead, O'Neill. Read that
I
ordinance.
have to read it. This ordinance amends the official zoning lot designation point 3.91, formerly a portion of Ruby Pollard, per attached legal description from conservation and mixed-use corridors, MU. This rezone is identified as zoning ID PZ 2227.20, whereas Ascension Parish local government subdivision is defined by Article 6, Section 44, Louisiana Constitution, 1974. Whereas the Parish of Ascension is the governing responsible body over the zoning and regulations within this jurisdiction. Whereas Article 6 of the Home Rule Charter of Ascension Parish adopted May 4th, 1993, identifies the process and manner in which to adopt ordinances regulating the lands of the parish. Whereas the official zoning map for Ascension Parish was last adopted March 6, 2016, and whereas the Parish Council reserves the authority to make changes to the official zoning map by ordinance, whereas this request has been processed in compliance with the procedures set forth. Be it ordained, the Ascension Parish governing authority, the official zoning map of Ascension Parish is amended to reflect the property identified as Exhibit A, its mixed-use corridor as the official zoning designation. In the event any portion of the ordinance is ever held invalid or unconstitutional for any reason by any court of competent jurisdiction over it, such portion shall be deemed separate, distinct, and independent. Provisions shall not affect the validity of remaining portions of the ordinance. This ordinance shall be in full effect as permitted by law. The exhibits of the legal description, the plat map, the aerial and zoning map. This ordinance have been submitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Now, having gotten ahead of myself, Mr. Robert, the chair, we already have a motion and a second, I believe, to move the ordinance. Mr. Robert, do you have a question?
From what I understand, this particular piece of property, if I'm coming from I-10 on John LeBlanc Boulevard, I would take a right on Airline Highway, and it's towards St. James that way. Is that correct? Is anybody familiar with this?
Yes. This property is along Airline Highway, right south of Sorrento on the way to I-10, the on-ramp onto I-10. It's right past the boundary between Sorrento and the parish. and past the Entergy exchange station there, all right? So it's on the right side of the road as you're going south, all right?
Okay.
It is in your business.
And my reason for asking the question, obviously, is because that's a pretty large change from mixed use. But yeah, I think that'd be, no more questions. That's good.
Thank you very much. Any other questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item G, reading of an ordinance to amend the Ascension Appendix 6 subdivision regulations, Section 17-4042, lots, geometric standards. C, to remove public street and roadway when determining the lot area. Mr. Parrington.
To amend the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code, Appendix 6 subdivision regulations, Section 17-4042, lots, geometric standard. C, whereas the Ascension Parish local government subdivision is defined by Article 6, Section 44 Louisiana Constitution 1974. Whereas the Parish of Ascension is the governing responsible body of zoning and regulations within the jurisdiction. Whereas Article 6 of the Home Rule Charter of Ascension Parish adopted May 4th, 1993, identifies the process and manner in which to adopt ordinances regulating the lands of the parish. Now therefore be it ordained by the Ascension Parish Governing Authority that the Unified Land Development Code of Ascension Parish, Louisiana, Appendix 6, subdivision regulations, Section 17-4042, lots, geometric standard C is amended as follows. 1742C, in determining lot area, the area of the servitude or driveway shall be considered. In the event any portion of the ordinance ever invalid or unconstitutional for any reason by any court of competent jurisdiction over it, such portion shall be deemed separate, distinct, and independent provisions, shall not affect the valid remaining provisions of the ordinance. This ordinance shall be in full effect and submitted by law. The ordinance has been submitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Motion to adopt, Madam Chair.
I have a motion by Councilman Cagnolati, second by Councilman Mason to adopt this ordinance. Are there any objections? Hearing none. Are there any questions? Let me get that out of the way. Are there any objections? Hearing that, none, that ordinance is adopted. Item J, reading of an ordinance to modify Appendix 14, subdivision construction specifications, Section 8, drainage pipe, to eliminate the use of all corrugated steel pipe for side and rear drains and drainage outfalls. Mr. Parrington.
To amend the Ascension Parish Unified Land Development Code, Appendix 14, subdivision construction specifications, Section 8, drainage pipe, whereas Ascension Parish local government subdivision defined by Article 6, Section 44 Louisiana Constitution 1974. Whereas the Parish of Ascension is the governing responsible body over the zoning and regulations within the jurisdiction. Whereas Article 6 of the Home Rule Charter of Ascension Parish adopted May 4th, 1993, identifies the process and method to adopt ordinances regulating the lands of this parish. Now therefore be it ordained by the Ascension Parish Governing Authority that the Unified Land Development Code of Ascension Parish, Appendix 14, subdivision construction specifications, Section 8, drainage pipe is amended as follows. Section 8, drainage pipe 1, Part 1, general, 2.1 materials, B7 is eliminated in its entirety. Section 8, drainage pipe, Part 1, general, 2.1 materials, C1 is eliminated in its entirety. C1 now becomes A, C, C1C now becomes B. In the event any portion of the ordinance that is invalid or unconstitutional for any reason by any court of competent jurisdiction over it, such portion shall be deemed separate, distinct, and independent provisions and shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions of the ordinance. The ordinance shall be in full effect submitted by law. The ordinance shall be, having been submitted to a vote, the vote thereon was as follows.
Chair would entertain a motion. Have a motion by Councilman Lambert, second by Councilman Malonson. Are there any?
I'd also like to add a quick comment, if you would.
Absolutely.
Madam Chair. Sorry about
Mr. Malonson.
my dog sees somebody. I'm sorry. But no, look, if any of us cares about Ryan Savoy's acid reflux, let's please pass this because he loses a lot of sleep over these metal culverts. Thank you.
Thank you. Well, we don't want Ron losing sleep. He's too valuable. Okay, any other questions or comments? Any objection? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item M, Reading of an ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire right-of-way required to construct the LA 73 to Bluff Road, LA 928 connector project. Mr. Parrington.
Whereas the Ascension Parish government desires to acquire certain immovable property, hereinafter referred to as property. Whereas there is a need and a public purpose for the acquisition of certain immovable property for the road improvements for Louisiana 73 to Bluff Road, LA 928 connector project, herein referred to as the project. Whereas the Ascension Parish government hereby desires to acquire property, servitudes, and/or rights of ways and authorize the office of parish president to do whatever is necessary to enter into negotiations, acquire said property, servitudes, and/or right of way. Parish of Ascension hereby ordains that to authorize the Parish of Ascension to acquire by purchase, donation, or servitude all property, servitudes, or rights of ways as determined needed to construct the project. Be it further ordained that pursuant to all applicable provisions of law, the office of the parish president is directed and authorized to do whatever is necessary to acquire property, servitudes, and rights of way. And be it further ordained, the office of the parish president is authorized and instructed to proceed with the acquisition of the property, servitudes, or rights of ways in a timely and orderly manner. Be it further ordained that the office of parish president is authorized to exercise discretion in acquiring the property, servitudes, or rights of way together with all agreements and transactions necessary to carry out the intent of the ordinance. Be it further ordained that if purchased, the purchase price shall not exceed the fair market value of the property as evidenced by the appraisal valuation obtained or supplied by the parish. Be it further ordained that any and all actions previously taken by the office of the parish president in furtherance of the actions contemplated herein are ratified and accepted accordingly. All ordinance or provisions or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith are hereby repealed. And if any provision in this ordinance is held to be invalid, such invalidity shall not affect other provisions herein, which shall be given effect without the invalid provision. To this end, the provision of this ordinance are hereby declared severable. The ordinance shall be in full effect as permitted by law, and the ordinance has been submitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Chair would entertain a motion to approve.
Motion to approve.
Have a motion by, by Councilman Lawler, a second by Councilman Cagnolati. And I would like to comment here, gentlemen, this is a much needed connector. So I am very hopeful that the parish president will be successful in his attempt to acquire property for this purpose. Mr. Ogeron.
Yes, Mr. President, has there been any further discussion with DOTD regarding the extra work that they planned on doing on 73 in that area? That we can coordinate this extender along with the work that they were discussing earlier?
If the transportation chair would allow for maybe Joey to put that item on the agenda to discuss so we can get a full detail. I don't have those answers as of right now, but if the chair will consider that, we'd appreciate it. Administration would appreciate it.
Absolutely. I think Joey's here. He may be able to answer some of those questions. He's not at my house, I mean. He's not at my house.
Look, is that Joey in there?
Yes.
There he is. Hi, Joey.
Hi.
So, Councilman Ogeron, will you repeat your question for Mr. Turo's benefit, please?
Yes. Hey, Joey. We had a telephone conversation about a month back, I guess, regarding this extender from 73 to Bluff and coordinating that with some additional work that DOTD wanted to do in the area. Is that still the plan? Are we talking about the additional roundabout and the turning Seabro into a right turn only corridor? Is that still the conversation, or has things changed?
You're probably talking about the study that DOTD did. They had a consultant do a study for the 73 corridor, and this connector falls in that corridor study from LA 74 to a little beyond LA 621. So it is, in that area. We will stay in contact with DOTD for the entirety of this project, and we will make sure that that it doesn't contradict anything that's in that corridor study, to make sure that the full build out, is not, as much as possible, not tearing up something that we're building in the first place.
Well, I guess that's what I'm getting at. I want to make sure that this is coordinated with any of the state's efforts in that area, so that we're not having to redraw the lines and look for another extension at some point later because the state moved or changed their decision.
Correct, but because we're both, this connector would connect a state highway on both the east and the west end, LA 73 and LA 928, which is Bluff Road. We're always going to be in contact with DOTD, and we'll certainly keep that in our minds through the whole process to make sure that we're doing it in a good sequence and in a sequence to where we're not doing, like we said before, tearing up something and making it in a orderly fashion and the most cost-effective fashion.
Sure. And again, I'm bringing this up because, as you're aware, there was talk years back that Belle Savon was going to provide that corridor between 73 and Bluff. And that there were some decisions that were made and some discussions and certain plans were granted and were approved. And now we're saying that Belle Savon would be an unsafe corridor to act as a connector. And so I don't want to see us doing something similarly in that same area. This time we've got to make sure that if we're going to spend the money and do the work, we've got to do it right. And I think everybody's on page there. But I just want to emphasize that before we take that effort, let's make sure that everybody's on the same page and that we're not taking actions that we're going to, as you said, tear up a road to redesign it later. So
Corey,
thanks.
thank you.
Certainly do. Yeah.
Corey, thank you for your comments. We certainly had many discussions with DOTD and with the parish relative to this corridor, and particularly the challenges of Belle Savon. I would like to mention, while I have a moment, that CBRO was advertised, for construction I think it was today. So that is proceeding. We have a safety widening project on CBRO, and we're looking at the possibility of being under construction by October with a 9 to 12 month build out. So we certainly don't want to do a lot of work on CBRO, get that thing wide and pretty and beautiful at the intersections, and then come do something else that interferes with that. So I appreciate all your comments. I thank Joey for being here. And I think we had a motion and a second. I think that's my memory serving me. Do we have any further questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Moving along to item P. Now, y'all will give me 1 second. I've got to turn a light on. It's gotten dark in this room. Now these old eyes can read. Item P, reading of an ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire the right-of-way required to construct the LA 74 to Dutchtown High School Connector Project. Mr. Parrington.
Whereas the Ascension Parish government desires to acquire certain movable property granted after referred to as property, and whereas there is a needed public purpose for the acquisition of certain immovable property for the road improvements for Louisiana 74 to Dutchtown High School Connector Project, hereinafter referred to as project. Whereas the Ascension Parish government hereby desires to acquire the property, servitudes, and rights-of-ways, and authorize the office of parish president to do whatever is necessary to enter negotiations to acquire said property, servitudes, and rights-of-ways. The parish of Ascension hereby ordains to authorize the parish of Ascension to acquire, purchase, donation, or servitude all property, servitudes, or rights-of-ways as determined needed to construct the project. Be it further ordained that pursuant to all applications and provisions of law, the office of parish president is directed and authorized to do whatever is necessary to acquire the property, servitudes, and/or right-of-ways. And be it further ordained that the office of parish president is authorized and instructed to proceed with the acquisition of the property, servitudes, and rights-of-ways in a timely and orderly manner. And be it further ordained that the office of parish president is authorized to exercise its discretion in acquiring property, servitudes, and rights-of-ways together with all agreements and all transactions necessary to carry out the intent of the ordinance. Be it further ordained that if purchased, the purchase price shall not exceed the fair market value of the property as evidenced by an appraisal valuation obtained and supplied to the parish. Be it further ordained that any and all actions taken by the office of parish president in furtherance of the actions contemplated herein are ratified, accepted accordingly. All ordinances or parts of ordinances in conflict are hereby repealed. If any provision of this ordinance is held to be invalid, such invalidity should not affect other provisions herein, which shall be given effect without the invalid provisions. To this end, the provisions of this ordinance hereby declared to be severable. This ordinance shall be in full effect as permitted by law. The ordinance has been submitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Thank you very much. The chair would entertain a motion to move the ordinance.
Motion to move, Madam Chairman.
I have a motion by Mr. Cagnolati.
Second.
Second by Mr. Lambert to move the ordinance. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that...
Question?
Yes, go ahead, Jimson.
Yeah, Parish President, in one of these, this is the connector to Terry Road, to Highway 74. Is this the same connector road from Highway 73 to Highway 74 off of Terry Road?
Joey's going to have that information. Joey, can you give that information,
This
please?
is from LA 74 to Dutchtown High School. It would connect somewhere, it would connect really to the parking lot of where the students park at Dutchtown High School.
Okay.
We don't know exactly what, Cary Lane is the nearest road there, and that's a possibility of the connection. But the school actually owns property a little bit to the west of that. So we're at the very preliminary stage. We just had one meeting in this regard, so we don't know exactly how it's going to connect, but it's going to be somewhere in that vicinity of Cary Lane.
Appreciate that. The reason, it was quite a few years ago that was looking at this, it would have had a bridge. I think there's a crossing somewhere in there that it would need a bridge. What I'm looking for is to eliminate that, and if we could go with the box covers, look at that possibility instead of putting a bridge in, because you're going to have to cross it one way. If you don't go on Terry Road, you're still going to have to cross this this channel. Thank you.
And that's true. Ron Salmore had mentioned that very thing, Dempsey. So that's y'all thinking alike, and that could save a lot of money and a lot less maintenance putting box covers there. So we're certainly going to explore that.
Thank you.
Excellent. Thank you. So any other questions? Thank you, Mr. President and Joey, for pursuing these very worthwhile projects in District 8. Are there any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item S, reading of an ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire the right-of-way required to construct the Germany Road widening US 61 to LA 44 project. Mr. Parrington.
Whereas the Ascension Parish government decides to acquire certain immovable property hereinafter referred to as property. Whereas there is a needed public purpose for the acquisition of certain immovable property for the road improvements for the Germany Road widening US 61 LA 44 project herein referred to as the project. Whereas the Ascension Parish government hereby is to acquire the property subject to rights of ways and authorize the office of parish president to do whatever is necessary tending to negotiations to acquire said property servitudes and rights of ways. The parish of Ascension hereby ordains to authorize the parish of Ascension to acquire, purchase, donation, or servitude all property servitudes, all rights of ways is determined needed to construct the project. Be it further ordained that pursuant to all applicable provisions of law, the office of parish president directed authorized to do whatever necessary to acquire the property servitudes and or right of ways. Be it further ordained the office of parish president is authorized and instructed to proceed with the acquisition of the property servitudes or rights of ways in a timely and orderly manner. Be it further ordained the office of parish president is authorized to exercise its discretion in acquiring the property servitudes or rights of ways, together with all agreements and transactions necessary to carry out the intent of the ordinance. Be it further ordained that if purchase price shall not exceed the fair market value of the property as evidenced by an appraisal valuation obtained or supplied to the parish. Be it further ordained that any and all actions previously taken by the office of parish president in furtherance of the actions contemplated herein are ratified and accepted accordingly. All ordinance or parts of ordinances in conflict herewith are hereby repealed. If any provision of this ordinance held to be invalid, such invalidity shall not affect other provisions herein, which shall be given effect without the invalid provision. And to this end, the provisions of this ordinance hereby declared severable. The ordinance shall be in full effect as permitted by law. The ordinance has been submitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Motion. I have a motion by Mr. Mason,
Second.
second by Mr. Lawler to move the ordinance. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item V, reading of an ordinance to authorize the parish president to acquire right-of-way required to construct the Duplessis Road widening US 61 to Highway 73 project. Mr. Parrington.
Whereas Ascension Parish desires to acquire certain movable property herein referred to as property. Whereas there's a need for a public purpose for the acquisition of certain immovable property for the road improvements for the Duplessis Road widening US 61 through 73 project herein referred to as a project. Whereas the Ascension Parish government hereby desires to acquire property servitudes, rights of ways, and authorizes the parish president to do whatever is necessary to end negotiations to acquire said property servitudes and rights of way. The parish of Ascension hereby ordains to authorize the parish of Ascension to acquire, to purchase, donation, or servitude, all property, servitudes, and rights of ways as determined needed to construct the project. Be it further ordained that pursuant to all applicable provisions of law, the office of parish president is directed and authorized to do whatever necessary to acquire property, servitudes, and rights of ways. Be it further ordained the office of parish president is authorized and instructed to proceed with the acquisition of property, servitudes, and rights of ways in a timely and orderly manner. Be it further ordained the office of parish president is authorized to exercise his discretion in acquiring the property, servitudes, or rights of ways together with all agreements or transactions necessary to carry out the intent of the ordinance. Be it further ordained that if purchased, the purchase price shall not exceed the fair market value of the property as evidenced by an appraisal valuation obtained or supplied by the parish. Be it further ordained that any and all transactions previously taken by the office of parish president and further this actions contemplated herein are ratified and accepted accordingly. All ordinance and parts of ordinance conflicted herewith are hereby repealed. If any provision of the ordinance is held to be invalid, such invalidity should not affect provisions herein, which can be given effect without the invalid provisions. To this end, the provision of this ordinance are hereby declared severable. This ordinance shall be in full effect submitted by law. The ordinance has been submitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Chair would entertain a motion to move the ordinance.
Motion.
I have a motion by Mr. Lambert, a second by Mr. Ogeron to move the ordinance. Are there any questions? Any objections? Hearing none, that motion passes. Item Y, reading of an ordinance, excuse me, to amend the transportation impact fee ordinance. Mr. Parrington.
To amend an ordinance adopted by Ascension Parish Council on September 6, 2018, amending Chapter 19, Roads, Bridges, and Other Public Ways, Article 6, Transportation Impact Fee, Section 1951D, establishment of the Transportation Impact Fee Schedule of Ascension Parish Code of Ordinances. Whereas the Transportation Impact Fee, Section 1, 1951B1 states the Transportation Impact Fee shall be adjusted on the first day of each July based on the percentage average change in the engineering news record construction cost index from the preceding 2 calendar years for the fiscal year 2018 and subsequently July 1 at the fiscal year and commencing. Whereas the Parish of Ascension through the Parish Council under lawful session passed an ordinance on 16th day of May 2019 authorizing the amendment of Chapter 19 Roads, Bridges, and Other Public Ways, Article 4 Transportation Impact Fee, Section 1951 establishment of Transportation Impact Fee Schedule. Now therefore be it ordained by the Ascension Parish Governing Authority of the Parish of Ascension, State of Louisiana, Chapter 19, Article 4, Section 6, Transportation Impact Fee, 1951D, establishment of a Transportation Impact Fee Schedule be amended and supplemented as further described in Exhibit A attached to and made a part hereof. If any provision, if any section, subsection, sentence, clause, phrase, or portion of this ordinance is for any reason held invalid or unconstitutional by any court of or state or federal agency or competent jurisdiction, such portion shall be deemed separate, distinct, and independent divisions, and such ordinance shall not affect the validity of the remaining portions hereof. This ordinance shall be in full effect as submitted to law. The ordinance has been submitted to a vote. The vote thereon was as follows.
Mr. Lawler.
Yes, thank you for recognizing me. This is something that came through transportation, and I know I've gotten a lot of calls on this, both for and against. A little background so everybody understands is this was passed 4 years ago, the traffic impact fees were. At that time, we passed it at 70%, which was a compromise. But it was very important that we get it moved. Now, these traffic impact fees have really produced a lot of money. I think it's over $8.5 million that they produce that have gone directly to improving traffic and safety in Ascension Parish. What we did, though, at that time, though, was at 70%. That means in the past 4 years, we have given up $3.7 million that we could be using for traffic improvements. It has always been my goal that we should collect 100% of the traffic impact fee. First of all, the traffic impact fee, when it was determined, it was not a random number. We had engineers, and I forget the name of the firm, but it was studied for about 1.5 years, and they figured out what the impact is of every single type of development. Now, I don't mean neighborhoods only. I'm talking houses, restaurants, offices, trailers, anything that's built in the parish, anything that's new. What impact does that have on our parish from a transportation perspective? That single one-time impact that it has, and they figured out that amount. Now, every year since then, we've either raised or lowered the amount based on an index, basically a cost of living index. Last year, we actually lowered the transportation impact fee because the cost of the index reduced it. This year, it's going up by 5.28%. Now, when it came through transportation, it was an increase of an additional 30% so that we would collect the full 100%. Now, I've listened to a lot of y'all. I've also spoken to the Home Builders Association. I've spoken to contractors. I've spoken to developers. I've spoken to a lot of individuals that live in the parish. There's a lot of conflict there. One thing that I've found is that this is potentially this much of an increase, and it would be about a 30% increase going from 70%, or exactly 70% to 100%. It could be harmful to the parish. And I'm cognizant of that, and I want to compromise on this. So what I've done is I've looked at increasing it by 15% this year, which that sounds like a lot, and I understand that, but I've done the math on it. For a house that's less than 2,000 square feet. Now, according to a website I looked at today, the average home in Ascension Parish in the past 2 months that have sold has been 1,800 square feet, slightly over 1,800. So that would be most houses in this category. At 85%, the impact fee would be $2,372. Now, that's a $419 increase from the 70% amount. The reason that's important is that equates to, in a 30-year loan, if this is passed on to the consumer, which most home builders and developers do, they pass this on to the consumer, but over a 30-year loan, assuming a 5% interest rate, and first of all, this only applies to the east side of the parish, not to the west side, that would be $2 a month. Now, we're not talking about a tremendous amount of money per month. When you're buying a home, you don't go down to the $1 or $2 a month to see if you can afford it. Even for a home that's over 3,000 square feet, we're still talking $3 a month increase. Now, when you talk about economies of scale, this is where it's important. And I will go on, though, an office space. You're talking about for every 1,000 feet in office space, an increase from 70% to 85% is $4 a month. It's not a lot of money. A business is not looking at can they afford $4 a month. It's much larger than that. But economies of scale, what we've got here is this increase. If we had done this 4 years ago, we're talking an increase of about $1.8 million going into our transportation budget. And I think all of us have heard over and over again that transportation is the biggest concern of our constituents. Now, when it rains, we get a lot of calls on drainage. I think we've all had that recently. But day in, day out, transportation is a big problem. And this is an opportunity to help pay for some of that. Now, $1.8 million over 4 years is actually a lot of money because through Move Ascension, we've used those dollars to gain federal and state dollars. So when you talk about approximately $2 million, we've been getting grants at 25 and even 90%. That we put up a little bit of money, we get a lot more brought in. So this is a very significant amount of money. So what I would like to propose, I'd like to do an amendment to this, where what we would do is, and I've got it written down, is increase, in addition to the cost of living, I think it's not the correct term, but in addition to the 5.28% cost of living increase, we would increase the collection rate to 85%. That's 15% this year. In addition, in this amendment would also agree that next year on June 30th, we would increase the rate by 5%. That would bring it up to 90%. Then on June 30th of 2022, we'd increase by another 5%. And then June 30th of 2023, we'd increase by another 5% to 100%. What that would do is it would allow the developers and the home builders to account for that money in the future, to know where it's going to come from, and to be able to plan for it. It would also eliminate the need to have to do this every single year. Once we get to that 100%, I think we're good there. I've talked to a lot of people about this. I've talked to people in the administration. I think there's some support there. I think this is a good compromise. Excuse me?
I said I make a motion on your amendment.
Well, we have a motion. I'll give it a second on my end. I think this is a good compromise.
I have a motion and a second on this compromise agenda, which you have read pretty clearly. I see some questions there. I'll get to those in just a second, but I want to make sure I understand. This is an increase of 15% this year plus the 5.28, or
that's correct. The 5.28 is really a separate mechanism that we look at the cost of construction. Last year, we actually reduced by, I think, 0.78%.
Yeah,
so that goes up and down every year just depending on cost. I'm talking about the collection rates now.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I needed that clarification. Mr. Melanson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Look, and before I start, I do not disagree with what Councilman Lawler is saying. It is a lot of money that we're leaving on the table. We all know if you poll the entire parish, your two top categories, 1A and 1B in some type of order, is going to be traffic and drainage. And we can all agree that we do not have sufficient funds to maintain our roads the way that they need to be maintained. And a big part of that is not of this council, not of the previous council, but at the voting polls over the years, a lot of residents don't understand. We have more dedicated funding in this parish for libraries than we do traffic or drainage, and that is an issue. I do have a major concern with raising the traffic impact fees, and my and a big reason of mine is that, give or take a little bit, roughly 60% of Ascension Parish is in AE flood zone or worse. And so our new field ordinance that we passed last year, with our new field ordinance comes even more handcuffs and restraints on the individuals. And I'm not just talking about developers. I understand that, look, at some point in time, we had to hold the developers to the fire, put their feet to the fire, and make them accountable for the impact that they were having. In my area, in my district, and what I hear concern is we don't have a lot of developments and subdivisions, but the individual homeowners, between the transportation impact fee and the overhead cost of what the field ordinance passed September last year creates for some people. And I actually sent y'all, I just threw together a quick little spreadsheet. I actually meant to send this to y'all earlier in the week. I do apologize. I'll send it to y'all sometime this evening. And Mr. John's going to put this on the screen for us. And just to give y'all a quick idea, due to either our transportation impact fees and the cost of what somebody who lives in the AE flood zone, the dollar amount that they have to spend to meet those two requirements before they even receive a permit to start building their home, on average, is just south of $4,000, $3,969. These are, I reached out to 5 constituents who live in District 6. They asked me, please, for a nominee. So this is their numbers This is real life numbers. This isn't something I've thrown together. These are 5 people since January 1st of this year. This is their dollar amount of their transportation impact fee and what they had to pay an engineering firm to get their field mitigation done. And what I did leave out, because I don't think it's quite apples to apples, is the cost that they had to pay to perform the field mitigation, which would have brought this price up roughly another $2,200 to just over $6,000. But I did leave that out. But just for field mitigation, transportation impact fee, if you live in the AE flood zone or worse, which is roughly 60% of Ascension Parish, before we would issue them a permit to build a house on their half-acre, 3/4 acre, 2-acre lot, this is what they have to pay. And while I do have the floor, Madam Chair, I would also like to express my opinion of, I know there's some calculations and some formulas behind how we get through these numbers. And you can tell, so 2-3 weeks ago, we had to take a planning course at the parish building on a Saturday. And I did learn that, so whenever you see these oddball numbers, these 2,937s, that means that it's calculated on something. That's not just a number somebody threw at the wall and it stuck. It's a calculated number. My question is how does a 3,100 square foot home impact our transportation any more than a 1,500 square foot double wide or a 2,400 square foot home? To me, a single family home is a single family home. You have a single family living on a piece of land, and I know, look, and somebody with a college degree much smarter than I came up with these numbers, but I would like to find a median number somewhere that we can come to, and that a single home impact, a footprint is a footprint. And I don't believe just because you build a bigger home that you should have to pay any more or less. And there's a lot more questions I have about, the different fees and everything, which we can get into in private meetings with administration, with Mr. Fournier and his crew and Mr. Compton, and they can better help me understand how we come to these calculations. But I did want to lay that out. So at this point, I will oppose any raise in our traffic impact fees, because I understand we need the money to maintain our roads. I just think that we need to start educating our voters and our citizens that this is a byproduct of them voting at the polls, and let's see if we can manage it some other way. But so that's my spiel. I just want to show y'all some numbers, real life numbers, what it costs to build a house in AE flood zone, 60% of Ascension Parish. And I'll yield the floor. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Molisson. Mr. Ogeron.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you, Aaron and Chase, for y'all's input. I've had plenty of conversations with both of these gentlemen, and Chase hit the nail on the head when he indicated that a house in and of itself is not really impacting traffic. It's the number of vehicles on the highway. It's the number of individuals that are using the roadway. Now, I understand the impact fees that were assessed 4 years ago was a compromise. It was a way to get the money in so that we could do the road work that we've done to this point. And you guys have done an excellent job with it. I just believe that at this point, we're hindering our youth. We're hindering the 1,200 kids that graduate from our 3 high schools every year. And we're telling them, that if you want to return home and live in Ascension Parish, you're going to have to come up with $4,000, $6,000, $7,000 to build a home on a piece of property that your mother, your dad, your grandparents donated to you. And I know that at 22, 25 years of age, I didn't have that extra $4,000 or $5,000 to throw out there just for the right to build a house. So I agree with Chase, and I'm going to be standing with Chase as far as saying that I have to oppose any raising of the impact fees until we can get together and assess the true nature of the problem and how we can solve it without putting that burden on our children. And that's it. I yield the floor as well.
Thank you very much. Mr. Lawler.
I think Councilman Lambert was waving his hand. I didn't want to jump
sorry.
him.
I didn't quite see him. Dempsey, go right ahead, sir.
Yes, ma'am. Thank you. Also, I appreciate all the discussion, but you know, we're in the middle of this virus, and you have some agencies trying to figure out now how, you know, to reduce. I apologize. I'm not going to be able to support this. I really would just like to table this and look at it maybe 6 months from now. Let's see how the parish is doing, finances. This is not the time right now, but that's where I'm staying. I'm sorry. It's just I would support tabling this for 6 months. We'll look at it at the beginning of the year, and I think we'll have more information. But it's just putting too much on the on our youth, and you know, people are just trying to make it right now. So that's where I stand. Thank you.
Thank you, Dempsey. Mr. Lawler. Oh, excuse me. I see another hand. Mr. Robert.
I think an important point to bring up here with the number that Jason, everyone else is discussing as $4,000 or $5,000 being a large amount of money, and considering the times of Corona and this and that, we also have to keep in mind that these people are also going to build a house. You know, I mean, this is not, it's going to be a big investment, way more than the $4,000 or $5,000. And this is a way for us to continue growing as a parish and to provide the roadways and to provide the infrastructure that we need. So I don't feel like we're just charging you $5,000 to do anything. I mean, it's $5,000 on top of, I mean, this is your home. This is something like Aaron was saying could actually possibly be spread over a 30-year term or something. I don't think it's as big of a number and as big of a deal as y'all are saying for as much of a bite or a punch that we get for this as far as the money collected. Thank you.
Any other comments, Mr. Lawler?
Yeah, I do want to address, you know, I think these are all valid points, and I'm not ignoring, the burden that this could place upon people, but I really truly believe that it's not that oppressive of a burden. Even if you, I did the math real quick, on a $4,000 increase on a home, you're talking about $19 a month over a 30-year loan. Now, the thing that we hear from constituents day in, day out is do not build without infrastructure. We need infrastructure. And part of what we're doing here is saying that if we're going to build, you're going to have to help us contribute to this infrastructure. And a single-family home has the same impact as a home, whether it's in a subdivision or outside of a subdivision. And I believe he's only about maybe a quarter of an inch tall on my iPad, but I think that Jerome is here, and he may be able to answer some of the questions we have about how the numbers were reached. But it's my understanding that they look at houses. Square footage does relate to the number of individuals that live in the houses. This is not a random number that we came up with. The larger the house, the more likely it is to have a larger family, which has more children, which means that in the future, that impact is going to be greater. Because I look at my household now, I've already got an extra vehicle in the driveway. I've got another one that's taking driver's ed. It's expanding, and we understand that. What this is about is taking care of our future. I honestly don't believe that this will hinder our youth. And I also, in the last finance meeting, I think we were all pleasantly surprised at how well our economy is doing right now. Here in Ascension Parish, it's doing better than we thought. Revenues are not as low as we thought. And right now, I'm looking at this as something that we've got a lot of growth coming towards us. We've got things that we need to account for. We don't want to miss this opportunity. We've missed the opportunity for $3.7 million. We hear it all the time is they're building without infrastructure. Well, the new construction can help us pay for this. It's not a penalty on them. In no way is a penalty. But quite honestly, we have something in Ascension Parish that is wonderful. Our schools. We heard about it earlier today. That's why people are moving here. We have industry along the river that we continue to grow. We just heard the last finance meeting about ITEP approvals for REG and other companies that we're continuing to bring good citizens into Ascension Parish because we have a place to live. But this place is not going to continue to be a great place to live if we neglect paying for our roads, paying for our drainage, paying for our schools. This is an opportunity to help pay for that stuff, but from the people that are moving in. Yes, some people are just moving from house to house, but when you leave one house, another family moves in that other house. There's still an impact. I ask for your support because I think this is extremely important. I'm not saying $19 a month, if looking at Chase's figures, is a small amount of money. I understand that for a lot of people, $19 a month is a lot of money. But I think for the benefit of Ascension Parish, $19 a month is worth having better roads, having safer roads. It's something I know I'm willing to pay much more than that to have better roads. And this is something that I think is important. I ask for your support on it. But once again, I'm also trying to compromise on this. I can be reasonable on that also. I try my best sometimes. Thank you.
Thank you, Aaron. Mr. Cagnolati.
Yeah, thank you, Madam Chair. I heard everybody, and I understand what Aaron's thriving for, but I've got to agree with Chase and Corey and Dempsey on this. Dempsey, for the most part, we're in the middle of a pandemic. We don't know what the result's going to be. We've been fortunate that so far the parish revenues haven't taken a large hit, but we're not out of it. We're in the middle of another serious spike. And I just don't think the timing is good to lay another burden of cost on the people that do want to build and live in the parish. You know, we're talking about giving them an increase, and you know, it just doesn't seem right timing wise. I agree with Dempsey. Let's approve what we wrote in the ordinance. Is I guess I'm offering a substitute motion that we approve what was brought to the table tonight with 5.28 ENR increase, and leave everything and look at it 6 months down the road. And I guess the goal would be to bring it up to 100%. I just think the timing right now is not very good for that. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Mr. Wagasback.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a comment. I mean, I certainly understand that we're under COVID, and, I'm hoping that it's temporary, but I would think most people, if you're in a position to buy a new home, I don't think this changes it in the next month or two. I think we're approving this for the long term. I mean, this is something where we're trying to capture more funds to build our infrastructure for the long term. I don't know that we can make decisions based off of something that's happening for this month or next month. And I would say for most people, I mean, if you're worried about your financials, nobody's going to be looking for a new home. I mean, I think this is something that's further reaching than just COVID. I think we're looking, 6 months into the future, a year into the future, where we've been deferring these funds for so long that, it's time to step them up for the people that want to move here and enjoy our schools, enjoy all that we have to offer. I think they have to bring something extra to join our community. And yes, it is going to affect some of our children and some other folks that maybe have lived here their whole life. But I think this is something that, we do have to build infrastructure as we build these neighborhoods and as we bring new houses into these communities. I mean, so I just wanted to put my 2 cents in, but I think as we look at things, we should look long term. We should look into the future. I would say in the past, maybe we didn't look as far into the future as we should have. And this is an opportunity for us as a group to look into the future, not just what's going on this year, next week, 3 months from now. What are we trying to build for our kids, like you guys say, for our kids, future-wise? I mean, what are we trying to build? I mean, I think we have to do these things. It's a little bit painful. It's a little more expensive for the next people that move here.
but I think it's necessary to keep up with the growth, to keep up with the infrastructure. I mean, if we all ran on smart growth, I think this is the way we do it. So anyway, that's my 2 cents on that. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Wagaspack. Mr. Melanson.
Yeah, just one more question / comment, and maybe quarter inch Mr. Drone can help answer. But something that Councilman Lawler brought up, I guess I never really thought about, but he made the comment that that a home on an acre of land has the same impact that a home in a subdivision has. And my question would be, should we look into these transportation impact fees being based on density? Because I would argue, with no data to back it up, of course, but just my opinion right now is that 3 homes in a subdivision that share an acre of land have a lot more impact than a home on 1 acre of land. So should we consider some or transportation impact fees to be based off of population density and your land mass instead of just the size of the home? Everything, because I was born and raised in a 1,700 square foot double wide trailer with the same amount of people that Councilman Lawler has in his house now. So just kind of throwing that out there as an option. Maybe we should look into that. I don't know if that data and or math is there, but that's my opinion. Thank you, Chairwoman.
Thank you. Mr. Robert.
Whenever you have multiple homes and a tighter density, it kind of figures itself out, because now you have 3 homes paying for that amount of property. So, I mean, that kind of figures itself out. But was there another motion? Was there a substitute motion on the floor?
Was
another substitute motion, or is it just?
There was a substitute motion offered. It has not had a second. That substitute motion was to go up to only the 5.28, which is that index, and not anything else. Is that was your motion? Mr. Cagney.
I would like to second Councilman Cagney's motion.
Have a motion and a second on a substitute motion to only increase the 5.28% this year. Are there any further questions? Are there any objections to that motion, to that substitute motion? Mr. Robert, take away the question, are there any objections? Are there any questions about that? Mr. Robert had his hand up. Mr. Mason?
I was just making an objection.
Okay, well, let's wait on that until we see if we have somebody with questions. Do we have questions? Mr. Mason?
Yes, ma'am. Thank you, Ms. Chair. So the substitute motion is to increase the 5.28%, but I thought whenever we had the discussion that the whole point of not increasing the 15% was not increase at all during COVID. So if we're not going to increase at all due to COVID, why are we still increasing the 5.28%?
Mr. Cagney.
That's written into the ordinance. It's something we approved back in 2016, and it's been adopted ever since. It's rather than say use a consumer price index, we chose to use the ENR construction cost index. And that's like Aaron said, last year it went down, and this year it's going up by 5.28%. So that's kind of automatically in the ordinance.
Okay, thank you.
So any other questions about the substitute motion? Any objections to the substitute motion? Have several. So roll call, Senator.
Councilman Thomas.
Already, yes.
Councilman Robert.
No.
Councilman Turner.
Yes.
Councilman Orgeron.
Yes, ma'am.
Councilman Lambert.
Yes.
Councilman Melanson.
Yes.
Councilman Lawler.
No.
Councilman Wagasback.
No.
Councilman Kamalotti,
Yes.
Councilman Mason,
No.
Chairwoman Passo.
No.
You have 5 nays and 6 yeas.
So the substitute motion passes. Now we have to go back and vote on the initial ordinance?
No, the substitute motion passed.
Okay. The settlement had sent me an indication that that's what we needed to do. So if that is not the case, we're good. The substitute motion of an increase to 5.28%, which is the engineering index, has passed. Are there any comments? I think, Chase, I saw you wanting to make a comment. Go ahead, Chase.
Oh, yes, ma'am. I think this is a extremely important topic, and Councilman Lawler has spent a lot of time on this, and I do agree something needs to be done. Due to the COVID, we all know that we haven't got to spend any time with each other, and whatever we can kind of get in a phone conversation. So I definitely believe that we need to address this if and when things kind of get back to normal. Small groups, 3 or 4 of us at a time, so where we can try to find that medium ground, because we do need money to improve infrastructure. I just would like to try to find a middle ground to where we don't put each other in too much of a bond, or new neighbors and friends and family. And that's my final comment. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Robert.
I just wanted to point out that this was an opportunity for us to improve our infrastructure in the parish. You know, I'm a little disappointed that it didn't pass, because that's what our people want. That's all I wanted to say.
Thank you very much. Okay, so that is done. And so the chair would entertain a motion under number 11, which is adjournment.
Motion.
Have a motion and a second to adjourn. Thank you all very much, gentlemen.
Have a great night.
Everybody have a good night.